Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good one. I try not to hold too many convictions about things. I think I try and take it in the moment, but that one comes often.
Why is it a good one?
That's a good question. So why is that a good explanation? Um,
How's your day going?
Beautiful. Kids are out of camp for the day. I took a day off for exploring the park.
Nice. You said that you guys live around here, right?
Yeah, we're over in the Oakland Hills.
All right. Jesse.
That's me.
Jay.
ESSE.
Cool. I'm David. Good to meet you. So you had a little bit of time to kind of think about something that you wanted to talk about. Or if you don't want to reveal the topic, we can keep that hidden. And that helps me to A, keep my bias out of the questioning, and B, it helps you keep kind of be anonymous with a conclusion that you hold that you may not want other people to know that you hold it, or you can reveal the claim.
Okay.
And we have lots of different thought experiments that we can try. But what do you think? I'll leave it up to you.
Give me 1 minute to think about it, because we were kind of talking about it over there. So let me think about a slightly different one. Just give me a second to come up with something to think about.
I also have a can of words here that I call my quantum claim generator.
All right, that's fun.
It can kind of trigger an idea that you might feel strongly about that you want to explore the reasoning behind.
Sure, I'll take one and then...
And you don't have to take the first one. You can keep fishing if you want.
It's a good one.
And then, of course, if you come up with one on your own,
Yeah,
that's fine.
why don't you give me 1 minute, because we were kind of going on that one.
Sure,
That one did
yeah.
something different.
You can throw that back in here if you want.
Okay, sure. I mean, it's up to you. I'm happy to share it, or what? Or
Yeah, you want to share it?
Yeah, sure. I like to. I mean, often we'll consider, the existence of harmony in nature. Like, is it really there? Is it, or what is it that? Why do we experience harmony? And is that how we understand and experience beauty? Is it our need to feel beauty? Is it baked into our relationship with reality, and that is the universe sort of experiencing itself through us? If it's infinite, if the universe is a part of it, it could have an experience. If it is infinite, then it might be difficult to appreciate its harmony without a finite perspective. So that's sort of I like to think about. I like to think about that sometimes.
We are the universe experiencing itself.
Yeah.
We could talk about that if you want.
Yeah, I think that's a fun one. I
Okay.
kind of revolved around that one various times in meditation, or just certain states of mind, playing music, or sometimes my mind wanders to that point.
Okay. So,
And like,
The uni-
why do we feel that? Like, and why is that even a thing that comes up in my mind? Is that a justification, some way for me to justify my being and not feel existential angst because we all feel that we all have this finite knowledge that it's going to end. So do I give myself that sense of meaning to make it feel okay that it's going to end?
Okay.
You know?
let me see if I can guide
Sure.
something here. It sounds like the statement, "We are the universe experiencing itself." It sounds like that statement is an explanation for a bunch of other things that you have a view about. Would that be accurate?
Maybe.
Okay. Because you were talking about harmony, why do we
Yeah.
experience it? Art, music,
Yeah.
this and that. Is we are the universe experiencing itself the explanation for all those things?
It could be. Yeah, I mean, it's a possible one.
Is it one that you use? If it's not one that you use, then it may not be worth exploring. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's a good one. I try not to hold too many convictions about things. I think I try and take it in the moment, but that one comes often. So I won't hold too strongly to it. But I think it's a good one.
Okay. Why is it a good one?
That's a good question. So why is that a good explanation? I think it helps try to step out to provide a perspective that helps step out of my own experience in a way. Not that it's possible. It's impossible to step out of one's experience, I think, but to imagine what is my experience? What is the I behind my experience? Is that a personal thing, or is there another explanation for my experience, for the experience of harmony? And I think almost maybe I'm kind of being triggered by my daughter who's talking about perfection as just a thing that she was talking about. And to me, I feel like there are these experiences where you can feel like you're experiencing that perfection through, whether it's in nature or whether it's a piece of music that you hear. It's like it couldn't have come any other way. And is that duality of like, well, like perfection or like order or chaos? Is that a real thing? Is that something that in infinite mind or an infinite consciousness could even know the difference between those two things, or does it need a finite point to be able to have that dichotomy or have those two different perspectives?
And this explains that for you?
I think so. I think that I think it's an exploration of it. I don't know if I will ever get to an explanation of it. But I think that's the fun part, is coming up with different. Maybe that's the deeper answer, is that it's fun to play with those ideas.
Can you think of a better explanation for harmony?
I think you could come up with a scientific explanation, and that.
What would one of those be?
Yeah, it could be that there is a, there is a natural force of order that just tends. There's a inherent force of our universe that tends towards order, and that can be things that you see, that a seashell being created out of sand, right? Or the leaves of a tree. Like what you have is essentially a bunch of just molecules and atoms of different elements, and somehow they come into order.
Okay.
And so you could say that is just the way that the natural way of things happens.
Okay.
But I feel like that is dry, and I feel like this maybe comes from
Say dry or dry?
Dry.
Dry.
It seems like a dry answer, and I think I grew up in a house where there was no sense of religion. I was encouraged to learn about philosophy. My dad was a pretty staunch atheist, a scientific atheist. My mom was sort of a semi-Buddhist, but we didn't talk about it. And so I kind of just grew up without any sense of, I think, awe. Everything had this sort of an answer for everything. Everything had an answer. And I think that as I got older, I started to have experiences that maybe question that. And I started to realize that I think that, like, ultimately, there is no real knowable answer. So it's up to me, it's up to everybody to choose a perspective that gives them joy and gives them, like, reverence and joy and power. Power in the world that they live in. And I think that's, I was talking kind of briefly mentioning there, is that I think you should take a stand and choose an explanation that gives you that power.
Can an explanation give you joy and it be an incorrect explanation?
Sure, it absolutely can. And I think there's a really fun quote that I liked. It was from Carlos Castaneda, wrote the books of the Don Juan books. And one of the Don Juan's quotes was like, any path is just a path. There's many different paths through the bush. And it's, some lead to power, some lead to ruin. And at any point, you should always be inspecting your path. And if at any moment you realize that this path is leading you towards ruin, you should find a new path. And so I think, to me, I interpret that as that there is no necessarily objective, true perspective. There's only ones that are leading you towards harmony or joy or love. And I consider I use power in that way, not power over people, personal power. And then there's some that lead you towards personal corruption or a feeling of poorness and not healthy. So there's healthy paths and unhealthy paths, and I think that for me it's a choice. You take a stand, and without ever taking a stand, I think you never get to experience the strong depth in these things like joy and love.
Okay, I should probably back up a little bit here, because I'm interested now in how you view reality. Do you think there's a reality beyond our perspectives?
I think that our perspectives are a very limited experience of reality.
Reality is there, though.
Reality is there,
regardless of our perspective.
I think that we all have a perspective, and that there's also the two things we know. We are experiencing something, and that there is a reality that is influencing our experience. And I think that reality is unknowable. I think it is sensible, using our five senses, and that every scientific instrument that we come up with is still an extension of those five senses.
Okay.
But we will never know it's impossible to know what that reality is.
Do you agree with the statement, we all there is a reality that we all experience differently?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, couple more questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Harmony, how are you defining that word in this context?
Yeah, good question. I think I'll step back and say I think that it was probably I'm a musician, and I think that music was my first way to step away from the dry explanation of reality, which that I kind of grew up with, which maybe not wrong. It could be as correct as another one, but it didn't lead to the scientific one, where it might satisfy the conditions of the scientific method, and it seemed all the calculations work out, and we can do great things with this understanding. But ultimately, it left me feeling sort of empty, and I struggled to find as much joy in that. And then I realized that music for me is something that I can't really explain, and I kind of refuse. It's more of a refusal to define the depth of emotion and feeling that I have listening to the music that I play and love, as if it's just either evolutionary. It's like, oh, bird song, and maybe drumming, and then over time it just turned into music. It's some way of us connecting to rhythm. I think my experience is it's much deeper than that. So there's something fundamental about music that resonates with me in a way that I don't think science can ever explain. And I think that in some ways relates to, so that was my stepping back. And now to kind of get closer to your answer was, I think things like colors and harmonics, like I think it was Pythagoras talked a lot about like harmonics. And these are ways of like understanding frequencies. And there is, and mathematics is almost, I'm not even sure if that really belongs in science.
Like aesthetics and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think aesthetics, but also like if you just look at like frequencies, how you can go up, the math behind, I don't like to reduce music to math, but I think that there is some connection between how frequencies are mathematically stacked on the way that octaves change and there's harmonics and things like that. And I think that some of that there are correlations of that in sound harmonics and frequencies to light. I think Pythagoras made some of those correlations as well. So I think that, to me, that's sort of, when I go back to the idea of harmony, I think there is something fundamental about reality, even though I don't know what it is and I can't say what it is, but it's there because my experience of it both leads me to feel that way, and I feel like I have to take a stand to give meaning to myself, because ultimately what I like to think about is like, we need to find meaning. Like if I don't take a stand, then I'll live a meaningless existence in a way.
Okay. And we are the universe experiencing itself is a better explanation for harmony in that sense than evolution would be?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, think about time and space as constructs. We don't know that those things exist. If the universe is an actual infinite thing, then time and space don't make sense. And if our finite existence is a way, we use time and space as an experiential measurement, then that is a way for an infinite thing to potentially even appreciate its harmony, because it is a thing that you can explain whether it's harmony through a set of progression in music, that's a time thing, or potentially it's harmony in light, or a single chord of music that's almost a spatial thing because it's different frequency bands. Like it's not exactly matter, but
okay. So
I think that kind of, it comes back to that as we through a finite experience that is grounded in the experience of time and space, even if that isn't a true nature of reality. I like that explanation for it.
Sounds like we have two explanations for things like harmony. One, we are the universe experiencing itself, and two, evolution. Are those mutually exclusive?
No, I don't think that they're mutually exclusive.
Okay.
I think it could be combine them could be really exciting, because in a way it could be a way of, if the universe were to experience itself through that evolution, you get more appreciation as you get older, because you can think back about how you experienced it as a child and how you have it now, and that progression gives it even more depth of meaning than a single point in time. And of course, I'm not trying to say that the universe's experience of itself is anything like our experience of anything, but it's the closest thing I have, I think, closest concept I can use to that.
Okay. I'll wrap it up here, maybe with this question, and then you can ask me a question if you want. If the explanation evolution was more accurate than we are the universe experiencing itself, regardless of how much you like one or the other,
Sure.
what would that mean for you?
I would probably reject it still, because I wouldn't find meaning in it. You could tell me that it's more accurate, but what would that do for me?
If you were convinced it was more accurate,
Yeah,
you would still reject that as the best explanation?
I think so. I think because what does the best mean? So if you define best as most accurate, then I would say, oh, sure, it's the best.
I can offer what best means in this context.
Sure, that'd be helpful. Yeah.
The one with the less variables, the most explanatory power. How does that?
I would say I would agree with. I would say it is probably the best in that definition, and because I think you could say, well, it's repeatable. It's more repeatable. It's more of a shareable, testable. You could probably have that conversation with more people and get to a greater consensus. Which we were talking about consensus earlier. I think this is fun to kind of have it be related to this, even though we didn't start in the same place. But ultimately, I think the older I've gotten, the more I think about consensus as less meaningful, personally, and I think about those, like convictions. Like again, convictions are prisons, and so maintaining your convictions that come from consensus can be very limiting. And so I think that really it's and that goes also going back to that idea of they're all just paths. And so what path are you on? You don't have to stay on that path. It's the path that's giving you what you need right now to be in the world and to be having a meaningful, deep experience that is giving you joy. Because I think ultimately that's what I try.
It sounds like you would prefer to have more meaning than to be more accurate.
Absolutely. I think because I think about my ultimate goal is to experience joy and share that and have other people experience the joy and compassion and love. And I think that I'm not so sure that is the end so much of accuracy. Whereas I do think it is more the end of joy, meaning and joy. Like meaning is a tough word. Maybe I should be using it. It's a hard one.
Okay.
And I still, as much as I even say all this, like I am a scientific-minded person. I studied neuroscience, and I still love to learn about how the brain works. And I try to ground some of this in a sense of what our current understanding of the mind is.
You're scientifically minded, yet you'd prefer meaning and joy over accuracy.
Yeah. I think maybe that's sort of what spirituality is. I think I didn't grow up with spirituality. It wasn't even a concept in me. So I've had to come to that later. I didn't have examples of it. I've met lots of people. They went to church. They went to synagogue. Their parents were talked about these things. God was a word in the home. God wasn't a word in my home. My dad never wanted to talk. I can't even really talk to him about it. Like he had such a terrible experience growing up in the house where it was forced on him. Got kicked out of Catholic school because of it. And so my perspective has been difficult because I think I've had to come to it from almost nothing. And so I came very much as a skeptic. I remember having arguments when I was in my 20s, thinking about how could you possibly believe in something you can't see, touch, hear, smell, right? And later, I think the experiences of like, what is it that I really am here for? What is it? What gives me meaning? And is it just all about me? How am I going to give these experiences to my kids? Is it going to be through accuracy? I don't think that I have to teach them that. That's how we, I think, can sometimes remain sane and not float away, right? That's our anchor.
Well, my question was going to be, couldn't someone find meaning and experience joy through pursuing having as accurate a map of reality as possible?
Absolutely. And I think it's really interesting. There's a lot of scientists who are religious and spiritual. Like my uncle's a chemist, and he's a devout Christian. And I think you look through the history of science, and a lot of them are. It's an appreciation of
compartmentalize the two.
Yeah, and I think in some way it's a way of appreciating what they might believe as a divine creation. It's like the more I can learn and study it and describe it, but and that opens up a whole other thing, which maybe is another conversation I would have liked to have loved to also talk about, which is,
Sure.
We like to think that we know things because we've measured them, and this is maybe why coming back to, I don't think measurement and accuracy is the most important thing, is because I don't think that having better descriptions and measurements of a thing is actually knowing the thing. There's a wonderful quote by Richard Feynman about this, and he was talking about his father when he was growing up would say, I could, somebody's dad, I think his friend's dad was an ornithologist or something. Like, he knows all about these birds. And he says, yes, but, I could point out every name of every bird in this whole planet, and I could describe to you, well, if it has this sort of beak, it's this kind of bird, and has this color feathers, and if it, all this, and I could describe all the birds. But I wouldn't know anything about really the nature of a bird necessarily. And I'm butchering this quote terribly. I'm sure you could find it and make this more meaningful.
I'm following though.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think it's helpful to be able to use accurate descriptions and measurements, but that doesn't necessarily give you knowledge of the trueness of it.
Is it almost like I can measure an apple, I can weigh an apple, I can test for the chemistry components in the apple, but until I actually eat an apple,
100%.
The experience and maybe the meaning and joy from the apple is necessarily there?
Yeah, you got it. And for me, I think music is that for me, because there's no satisfying explanation to the experience I have when I challenge anybody to put on headphones and listen to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony or Fifth Symphony. I think, and for me, I'm biased. I'm a classical musician. Beethoven speaks to me. Close your eyes and 30 minutes, 40 minutes, listen to that, and the experience you have, I just can't reconcile it somehow being an evolutionary process by which, the rhythm of the waves is somehow codified into our DNA, into a sense of joy of rhythm and bird song and harmony. There's something else, and maybe there's not, but like the depth of experience and emotion I have in that moment of being completely immersed in that musical experience, it's an apple. Like, that's the flavor of the apple to me. And there's nothing you can do to explain music to me that's gonna even come close to that taste.
If we wanted to know if an apple was real, which way would you go? The measurement part or someone's personal experience about an apple?
I think we'd have to kind of figure out, like, are we talking about, like, what is the appleness of the apple? Is it the shape of the apple and the color, or the taste? Like, what makes an apple an apple?
If the apple...
It's a wax apple.
If or not the apple exists in reality. The reality that we, I think, earlier agreed that there is, regardless of our perceptions.
Sure. Okay.
If we wanted to know if that apple existed in reality, what would be a better way?
I think probably science would give you a better accurate representation of that appleness, because you could extract the juice from it, and you could get its mass, and you could throw the juice through a mass spectrometer and say it's got these terpene profiles in it, and it's got these sucrose levels, and you could chemically dissect that apple and be like, what we have here is an apple, and do the same thing to this other fruit that, Hawaii's got this thing called wax apple. I don't think it's an actual apple, but it looks like an apple, and they call it an apple, and you eat it, and it's not really an apple. And flavor, that's a very subjective. Somebody could be, it's like cilantro. Somebody might have that soapy thing in their mouth. But then the question thing is, like, what is the? I don't know, the appleness of it. Is it the science? I don't know if I have an answer for that. It's a good one.
Cool. We'll end it there.
All right. That sounds good.
Thanks, Jesse.
Right on.
It's really coming down.
Do you have any questions for me?
what do you want to do with all this? I
Well-
mean, I'm not sure if you're in this time right now. I'm asking a question and giving an answer, but I think that truth is a really important problem that we're having in this society right now. I'm kind of curious: is this an explanation related to where we are in this critical, challenging moment as a society, where truth seems to be at a crossroads, or is there other?
It kind of got me started
Yeah.
with this particular way of having conversations. I got into this at the 2016 election because we just weren't. We were losing the ability to talk to each other, regardless of what views we had. And I think it's important to show examples of how that can be done in a productive way. Just kind of meeting up with folks in different communities who want to come out and do this with their members of their community. And so basically just kind of drive around the country and meet up with folks like that. That's so cool. And put it on my YouTube channel for other people to see. And give people the opportunity to have a better grasp on why they believe stuff, why they think those ways of things are good ways.
Yeah,
Because that can bleed into other beliefs.
great. I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks so
Yeah.
much for stopping. That was great.
Yeah, I appreciated that. I think it's discourse is weird now. I think it's sort of like the way that media approaches it, and you have these talk shows, and it's like, rapid fire questions or these debates, and the problems of that.
Yeah.
Go back to this Socratic method and just like discourse. And I think one of the most influential things that I had when I studied philosophy in school was I was lucky enough to work with study under this professor who'd been teaching the Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky's book, for like 35 years. He'd been teaching this book every year. And I will never forget, and I use this as an example, any question that a student asked in that classroom, he knew that book better than almost probably anybody on the planet. He was master. He would treat that like the first time anybody's ever asked that question, or that he's ever even thought about this concept. So he would out loud in front of everybody say, now let's think about that. And he would just start from zero, and he would walk it through. And I really appreciated that so much, that somebody who probably has all the right to say, I know all there is to know about this book, treated himself like he was so ignorant about it. And it was such a wonderful experience. And I think I took that further, and as I left college and went into the world and started meeting people who I grew up here, and this is such a bubble. And then I started traveling for work and meeting people who very different walks of life and belief systems. That really helped me connect with it and say, wow, this person, like I was still that atheist. This is the way the world works. This person was like, tell me about how Jesus Christ did all this. I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna just let go of my convictions and just be totally open and empty to this thing. And I'm not necessarily going to try to agree or change my mind, but you can learn something from everybody. And I think that's what we've lost, is the idea that you can learn. I have friends that they won't even want to talk to somebody who's below them. Right. It's like, it's just such a shame. You're robbing yourself of knowledge, of self-knowledge, because you might learn about yourself by listening to someone who you disagree vehemently. Yeah. And I hope that what you're doing reaches a lot of people, because I think it's a really important thing.